Пожалуйста, Татьяна, начинаем.
Hi, everybody again. Jay, Mike, very happy to see you again. Emmy, very happy to see you here. So let me represent our guys here who didn't participate the speeches of Mike's and Jay. So Jay is the huge innovator and a good friend of mine. Really love him. He does innovation for many, many years, and he is a great expert. Mike Pell, he's from Microsoft, and he's the head of Microsoft Garage in New York. And he's a huge innovator also, and he wrote 2 books already, and he's, maybe Mike, you want to tell about your new book also in this panel, something to describe it, and Mike is a very good friend of mine also. And here is Emmy. Emmy, very happy to see you here. Emmy is the founder of EndeavorVR. And Amy, maybe you can tell something about you by yourself. We will be very happy for that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have a consulting company, EndeavorVR. I have a terrible echo. And we work with large companies on primarily immersive technology, but really end-to-end strategy around emerging tech and what it means to really change the way, it's not just change management or innovation, it's really changing the way we do everything, and but then finding sort of step-by-step ways to do that using technology.
Thank you so much. Mike, maybe you will tell something about your book.
I lost sound.
No, that was me stopping the echo. Sorry, Tatiana. I'll turn you back on.
Tatiana, you've been muted.
Yeah, you can unmute yourself, or maybe you can do that.
There we go. Oops.
Yeah, we'll just have to find
now
a way to.
Now you hear me?
Okay.
To oh, sorry, one more time. One more time, E.
Kind of goes back and forth. Oh, there we go. Now you're back.
Now you hear me?
Yeah.
Amazing, some technical issues. So Mike, maybe you will tell something for us about your new book. What is it about?
Sure. Yeah, thanks. It's called Visualizing Business. You can go read about it at visualizingbusiness.com, language business. The center premise of the whole book is that forever, we have described business in terms of very static charts and graphs, yet we all know business is highly dynamic and always moving and changing. And so this book helps to sort of show people how we can embrace the motion that's all around us and be able to surface the invisible to see what's really happening in our relationships.
Sounds very interesting. There are a lot of people offline here, about like a few hundreds, and a lot of people online here, and all of us here are together to discuss about metaverse and neurotech. So I have a few questions for you to discuss. And my first question is, how did the neurotech market come so far? And when? And why do we think it became more popular recently? And do you really think it's become more popular? Mike, maybe you're going to tell us first what you think about it.
So if you were asking me, I think it's because of the brilliant people that are in the room and online. There's been some amazing innovation that's happened very, very quickly. And so, it was, not a toy, but just an experiment not too long ago. It's come so far because of the hard work of integrating AI and machine learning into the process and actually being able to sort out what's happening.
Okay, interesting. Jay, do you want to add something about how did we found up ourselves in the world of neurotech, and are we, is it exist, or it's something that we come up in our minds?
Well, with neurotech, it's quite simple. You've heard my presentation earlier, and neurotech, our main supercomputer, is quite a natural thing to interact with. So why bypassing and using some kind of VR devices, gloves and so on, when we can do it directly with the brain. And here, the neurotech has made so much progress in the last few years, where you can even display what people see on a monitor some meters away. So here, I guess major breakthroughs using machine learning is simply the core enabler.
I agree totally with you, Jay. Emmy, do you want to add something? Maybe you have something to.
I think, in your question, you talked about, the vision. I think that's part of it. I think we all need it circles back into even Mike's book about, the way we think about language. I think this process of understanding ourselves and wanting to use technology to actually augment human experience. And if you look at the way all of emerging technology is evolving, if we leverage this technology correctly, that is the purpose. I mean, that's the goal, is to really augment our own abilities. And we've been visualizing, what you call it the singularity, or these human computer interfaces for a long time. It's just now the technology is kind of catching up with our vision.
Agree. Thank you so much. So if we're talking that neurotech market exists, at least we're talking about it, what do you think, how big the market can go, and what are the key drivers for market growth? What do you think, guys? Who want to be the first? Jay, maybe you?
Yes, sure, of course. Well, how big can the market be? Let's imagine that neurotech is another sensor that we add to our wearables. So everything that deals with a sensor might be attached on this. When we expand even and use additional use cases for direct interfaces like remote robotics, directly communicating with a robot without any other controllers. I would say neurotech might become one of the most important technologies.
Jay, what do you think, in which perspective we are talking about? Like how many years will go until we get what you say?
So, of course, we will have some growth through smaller devices, earbuds, simply to give you, let's say, additional fitness assistant, where you can, instead of having a clicker in your hand, where you can simply think on your slides and they show it. So through these smaller devices that might be feasible, let's say, within the next 3 years, I see and maybe within 10 years that is bidirectional.
Okay, and what do you think are the key drivers? It's hardware or software, or what is it? Implementation technologies by via corporates.
I would say it's a threesome thing. On the one side, you have, of course, the massive improvements in machine learning and deep learning that are right now accelerating so many aspects. Then we have the feasibility of the sensors that we don't really need for most of the use cases, an invasive sensor. So if it's transportable, if it's mobile, if it's just take it out of the box, this is also very important. And the third thing that will accelerate is now that the technology is accessible, we can think about more use cases. So now you will have an exponential development. Therefore, this 10 years, we will have a bidirectional device where I maybe will be directly attached onto a computer.
Thank you very much. Amy, maybe you want to add something. What's going to happen with the neurotech from your perspective in terms of on like 3-7 years old, and what is the key drivers?
I think really kind of the advent of biometrics relative to personal wellness. I think we're seeing a very big trend in, us taking more control over our own health, and that's going to be kind of this lead in to neurotech, because really we have to think about the end user, who is the consumer, and why there's going to be a big level of trust that we have to overcome. And so starting with, we're already using it with our watches and by measuring our sleep and our health and standing and meditation and all of these things that we're starting to do for our own wellness. As we start to have more smart wearables, smart clothing, and we start to have that interface where we're actually leveraging this data on a day-to-day basis around diet, around, just complete wellness, I think then it's going to make more sense for consumers and end users to want to leverage these kind of neural devices. And of course, Elon is out there talking about Neuralink, right? So he's kind of educating the public in his very splashy way, and that helps. But I think there are going to be plenty of players besides Neuralink.
Emi, what do you think? The neurotech will come into our lives from B2B or B2C market?
Is that Mike or me?
I think it's you, Amy.
Me coming to me.
You're the market expert.
I actually think that almost everything gets started by enterprise, because they have the money and they find the utility in these kinds of devices. So if you imagine, again, kind of being more impressive with being more effective at work and leveraging this technology to make us more effective at work or to learn better, train better. But where you start to see real growth is when consumers find that day-to-day use case, because we always forget that consumers are the workforce and the workforce are consumers. So once we're using it in our day-to-day lives, we saw that with mobile devices. We used to carry around two phones. We'd have our work phone and our personal phone. And eventually, the utility of our personal phones and our lives were carried in those phones. Then we start to merge those devices into one where we bring them to work.
Yeah, Jay, please.
When we are talking between or about the difference between B2B and B2C, we have to see two completely different products. For B2C, how Amy said, it's more or less, it's not your choice. It's the choice of your company. They give you the tool, you have to use it. The consumer area is more about human centricity. These products have to fit your lifestyle. They have to fit your needs. So we have a balanced two-way product. Only sometimes these products merge into the other area, like, for example, the smartphone. This had a huge impact on our private lives because it was of some kind beneficial. And then it went also into the B2B because we've been able to remotely work.
There's something more. So, like as Amy was saying, like let's say, like take health for example, and what Jay just mentioned. You get the convergent or funded area, and it seeps into the consumer world because there's a really compelling, action or like something that you just could not do before that just happens. And like we found that a lot of times when other things come out, like let's say there's another way to do three-dimensional painting, like except with absolutely no way to do that other than the way we're doing it. It wasn't just that technology, right? It took decades to get to that point. All of a sudden, consumers could buy it for $29 and do something unbelievable that they could never do before. So maybe in the realm of health, neurotech is so great at being able to detect potentially and map, like we feelings and emotion and things that are maybe not quite right with you, either mentally, physically. That's such a great opportunity to take all of this great research and build it into something that everybody carries around with them or has access to in some way, a mirror, a watch, a phone.
Mike, thank you very much. Continuing this topic, Did you see any amazing use cases already? Or if you didn't, maybe you can imagine some amazing use cases using BCI. What do you think?
I've seen a couple. Actually, I'm here right now at a very Airbnb in Orlando at an event called ITSEC, which is the Department of Defense kind of training and education conference. It's one of the largest for the public sector in the U.S. And last year, or actually 2 years ago, they were measuring cognitive load and actually delivering a training experience based on each person's ability to cope with that particular training. And again, I feel like this is a very 1.0 use case, but it's incredibly valuable. And you start to think about a concept like adaptive learning. You apply that to adaptive training so that you're actually challenging each individual user in the way that they learn best, and getting this kind of personalized training and personalized education. And if you start to think about that in an extensible way, you could argue that I think Howard Gardner talked about the 7 intelligences. You could argue there are infinite types of intelligence and ability to learn. And if we can start to measure this on a one-to-one basis using neurotech, I think the applications really are infinite.
Mhm.
Sounds really amazing. Jay, Mike, maybe did you see something very interesting, or maybe you can imagine something what can be amazing in the future, the BCI?
Well, I've seen some use cases that are really disappointing. Disappointing, like, for example, the BCI that Mercedes has used in their vision of the avatar. This is something really, I've tried it out, no way. The amazing things that I've seen is, of course, for example, in adaptive learning, to support your focus, how you are learning, to help you with the conditioning. I've seen one experimental use case where a non-invasive BCI, where we've been able to show what a person sees on a display on a different monitors. It was, of course, shady and blurry, not perfect, but it's the beginning, and it's so amazing. I mean, imagine what it can do for psychotherapy, what it can do in every kind of therapy when you can deep dive in.
Oh no!
Yay, freezy. So these are the use cases that are so interesting. And what I could imagine in future is, for example, disabled people, when they will be able to walk again, just bypassing with a then neural implant, of course, directly getting these firings and to enable them to walk again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, we can hear you fine.
Yeah, this is better. Yeah, much better.
Yeah.
I think we found the source of the echo.
Mhm. Yeah, one of the examples that you can sort of extrapolate from really quickly is if you have an Apple Watch or something similar, and it starts to tell you like, hey, Jay, you need to breathe. Now, you're a little stressed out, right? So that's the beginnings of something that, like, Amy touched on, Jay touched on, when our devices and our environment can help us to understand maybe something that we aren't recognizing, that we're not noticing, that becomes quite useful. Another example I love to use is I used to, fly all over the world and park in parking spots. I could never remember where I parked. So I would take a photo of my parking spot number. And then all of a sudden one day my iPhone started telling me where I parked. So when our phones or our TVs or monitors or laptops or whatever's start telling us things because they're monitoring, right, using neurotechnology, they're monitoring us in some way that we don't have to actively participate in. It just happens. That's a key use case to unlock. Now, I haven't seen a lot of great examples. We can imagine a lot of them together, but what Jay talked about very early on in this panel was the bidirectional nature. That's also like an unbelievable, like mind-blowing opportunity to hopefully not blow people's minds in a bad way, but to be able to influence or understand or help augment the way that we're interacting or learning or conversing with other people. So those are, to me, the most interesting use cases, is using the monitoring, like sort of ambient monitoring capabilities, and then also being able to feed back into what you're doing in some way.
Yeah, I want to expand on that because we've done some. I'm not aware of anyone doing this yet, but I had talked about some ideas around communicating with intent. And so when both Jay and Mike have just brought up this kind of two-way communication, when you think about the way we communicate now non-verbally through text and people are reading, I could send you a text saying, you forgot to make a reservation at the restaurant. You could read that as, you forgot to make a reservation at the restaurant, but I may have meant it like, you forgot to make a reservation at the restaurant. I guess we're going to do takeout. Like my mind might have been thinking something very different. And so as we're able to really capture intent and kind of the emotion behind what is communicated, think about the opportunity for all of us to have more empathy and be able to take a step forward and communicate better, because we're looking at these many, many external forces today that are doing quite the opposite and using media and these kind of articles and sort of using our own data against us to divide us. And, my hope is that we can leverage this technology to take back control of our data and start to communicate better and start bringing everyone together so that we're all being proactive about the future and not in this kind of spiral of control of the media. Well, boy, I'm jumping right in here because I have referred to what could happen is us becoming digital lab rats if we are not careful. So we really do need to be smart about this technology and again, find that interface where we can take control of our data and manage our data so that we can start to actually control how we experience the metaverse. And the metaverse, it's funny that it's just, it didn't just drop out of the sky. Just because Mark Zuckerberg changed his, the name of the company to Meta, it's really about, the echo is getting worse, but anyway, it doesn't change the fact that the metaverse actually is open and is for all of us, and it is the internet. It's the 3D internet. And so we're already there, we're already using it. What we need to do now is also be thoughtful. Like, let's not just rush in and like build our own little metaverse. Let's not start minting NFTs. That's not really the smart way to move forward. The smart way to move forward is to rethink our value system, how will we use this technology and this neurotech in these environments, because you can capture so much more data in these 3D environments. So I would just caution that we should educate ourselves and just be smart about how we move forward in both of these realms.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so in the talk that I did earlier called Visualizing the Neuroverse, so I'm using this term, the neuroverse, to mean the underlying substrate where all of this activity is happening. Like all of you were working on this amazing technology. That's sort of, to me, like this underlying universe of information, data, and all the things that are sort of helping to light up and power parts of the metaverse. But you're right, Amy. We're worried about people spying on our eyeballs, right? Through headsets. Just imagine if we could spy on your thoughts and your feelings and record that and prey on that, in a very nefarious way. Like, that's super scary. So we just have to be thoughtful. And all of you need to be thoughtful about the ethics and morality around this technology and what we do with it going forward.
The thing is, the technology itself does not need ethics or morality. The technology is just the tool. If I want to use it in a bad way, I will use it in the bad way. So here, what we would need, look, we all are projecting our fears onto the technology. The AI is not bad. It's simply the asshole who am I allowed to say it? It's simply the one who uses it in the bad way. So same here. With Neurotech, of course, I have many discussions about how can my employer then read my mind and all of this stuff. Well, Amy, you've already mentioned it. Data that is used against us. And it doesn't matter if it's data that someone reads out of your email. Our emails are scanned. If it's data from your headset, if it's data from your health app, it does not, it's irrelevant from what kind of data it is. So the same here with Neurotech. What we would need to implement is, on the one side, the right behavior, to be transparent with what you are doing. If MetaZook would, for example, claim in his end user agreement, we take all your data and we don't care about you. It's a simple thing. It's not hidden in 256 pages. Everyone would simply say, okay, agree or not. That simply it is. The same with Neurotech. It's just an additional technology where, of course, data is generated. I would like to use it for benefit of humanity. There will be someone who will use it against. If it's weaponized, Neurotech, whatever, it will come. We just need to face it. We need to be aware of it. And of course, the ones who want to lead it into the better direction can set up, let's say, some rules, can set up some filters. Maybe one day we will run around with our personal firewall. Who knows?
Yeah. So Jay, I completely agree with you, except for one point. I think as an industry, right, as an emerging industry, the way that we've gone wrong every single time in the past is we've taken that stance. Well, the technology is not bad. It's people that are bad. We have a responsibility as people in this emerging industry to take a stand and say, you know what, the tools we build, the processes we put in place, the policies that we agree to should have some ethics and morality built into them. I think we have a responsibility as an industry to try to set things in the right direction. People will do whatever they do. People are people. But I think as an industry, we should try.
We should try. Yes, agree.
Yeah, I saw an interesting, Jay and I were just in Dubai together, and I saw in one of the exhibits, there's an expo there as well next to the conference, and there was a poll on whether or not, whose responsibility is it to bake in ethics and regulations to technology. And over 65% of people thought it was the government. And I have to disagree. I think actually it's time for all of us. You may not have this app in Russia, but there's an app in the US called Nextdoor, which is supposed to be this sort of, neighborly app. And what happens is people just get on it and they waste time complaining about everything. stop complaining about everything, roll up your sleeves, learn a little bit about technology. I mean, this is what you're doing here, Tatiana. You are educating people today. And every single one of you in the room and every single one of you online, this is a very good use of your time because you're learning about technology, you're forming an opinion, and then let's take that into this next evolution of technology and let's make the rules for ourselves. Let's build a social contract on a global scale. It's possible. It's not easy, but it wasn't easy for big tech to steal all of our data, and yet they accomplished that. So now we need to let's just take it all back because in aggregate, we actually have so much more power than we think, and we need to feel our own agency with technology.
One more thing. When I am involved into a design process, planning a use case, developing a vision, my first question is the end product. Is it something I would like that it's used against me or with me? If I cannot say, or if the end product is something that would threaten me, then I'm out. For me, as someone who is able to shape the future of technology, this is a very clear statement that I don't do things that can be turned against me. Yeah. Look, especially in Europe, in Germany, it's quite simple. It shall not be used against you. So an employer has a responsibility. If you are so drained out, if you are so tired that an accident can happen, he should prevent it. If this is a feasible tool, simply to recognize in time when you are heading towards something that might be dangerous, it's okay. If they sneak into it, if they misuse it to sort out the goods and the bads, a workers' council will stop this immediately. It's the same discussion like, for example, HR, meanwhile, stalks the job applicants via social media. I mean, it's not their business. They just do it. Whenever I see that within my responsibility, an HR manager does something like this, it's his last day.
Yeah. So we ran this exact experiment actually using eye tracking. And the experiment was to use eye tracking to detect when people were getting tired on the job because they were on a set schedule of taking breaks. And we found, and I don't have the report in front of me, but it was something like a 23 or 24% improvement in productivity when using the eye tracking to detect when people were getting tired to actually force a break when they were tired as opposed to on a schedule. And what we ended up doing, which made this a much harder project, was that instead of having the companies receive that data, we circumnavigated their main Wi-Fi and we used their guest Wi-Fi, which wasn't secure, but I mean, if you scale this, you could actually secure it. And that data went directly to the worker and then notified them on their personal mobile device through their own personal account that the company does not have access to unless given permission by the employee. And we need to start demanding those rights also as employees. And because it's possible. I mean, we did it. It wasn't easy. And you'd have to secure a secondary network to be able to, and then have a separate account. It's almost like having an LMS system, a learning management system, but actually for employees that only employees can access.
Oh, that's so interesting, Amy. It's kind of like what Jay mentioned earlier, is like having a personal firewall. Maybe we do need like personal VPNs for our data when we're employed, because I can tell you, certainly in many of the high tech companies, they offer an amazing medical and vision benefits, and you can participate in programs, and they'll be happy to give you a complete physical and like mental checkup. And do I want my employer having access to all that data, even though it's a third party? No, of course I don't. So maybe that would, the personal firewall, the personal VPN would go a long way towards helping to have things like neurotech be helpful and used for the right reasons, because now people, like you said, Amy, do have the agency to control what they see and what they don't see. Well, one thing I can tell you about is something called Microsoft Viva, which is a well-being type of an application for teams, and also like sort of integrates into your, like sort of your internet. The purpose that Microsoft introduced Viva was to help managers and individual employees think more about their well-being. Like, are they taking breaks, like Amy was talking about? Are they, aware, like Jay was talking about earlier, of what's happening with them personally? And so I think to the enterprise, there's great value in this type of technology being able to help keep people aware of something they may not be aware of themselves. And, because we're in this new world of work now, right? We're going to be in this world for quite a while. And it's hard when you're not around people all the time to sort of check yourself, right? And to know where you sit. And so the technology can be quite helpful in that way.
Our working landscape, our definition of work is slightly changing. It comes with a new generation of people that have a completely different expectation on work. It's about well-being. So this becomes more and more important. Also, the pandemic has shown us how important it is to be your own master. And here BCI is something that can help us, because this new resorting of work, now, meanwhile, we are defining robotic work, so everything that has to do with strength. If it's an industrial robot, if it's whatever, then we have the second area that is considered to be logic work, everything about AI, about algorithms and so on. And then we have the third part, which is human work. And human work is more or less about creativity. It's about passion. It's about a purpose. And if we can simply pass forward the robotic work to the robots and the others to the computers, then we self might focus on what really is human, what we would like to do. And here, having a BCI that supports you in being creative, in being focused, in being getting predictive tasks, really being embedded in all of this, so that we can really focus on what we are best in. Mm-hmm. This is a vision that I personally like, where more and more of my clients are asking me about this, where I point them that maybe a BCI, an ecosystem around this, might be the right fit. I'm done.
I know. I like that you said that, because I've heard the opposite. Where I've heard a lot of detractors of this technology say, "Oh, we're not actually, using our brains. So like when we use GPS, we lose the ability to, find our way around. And actually, we don't understand the brain in the way that we need to, right, to understand this technology. And we at our core are creative beings, and we spend our early childhood kind of unlearning that creativity so that we can be these linear thinkers. But we need to get back to what we are good at, which is creating something from nothing and keeping those neural pathways open. And I would argue that we don't really need to know how to get from A to B, that will come. And when we have a need, we will develop that skill. But the real skill is being creative and being able to create even this next generation of art and solutions and technology.
Yeah, the last thing I would say about that is that neurotech has the capability to augment, right? To actually augment the human existence in a really like wonderfully positive, amazing way.
Well, it's honestly, this is an advice for every kind of startup. You have brilliant visions. The only thing where startups are not so good is keeping tactics and strategy somehow aligned. So having this far away vision in scope is super cool. This is what mostly companies are missing. But these first steps, how to achieve this is where most of the startups are failing. Concerning a specific BCI thing is be prepared for dumb questions like, is it safe? Or can it harm me? Can you steal my thoughts and so on? Simply be prepared for any kind of question, then you will rock it.
Yeah,
I would say, sorry, go ahead, Mike.
No, go ahead, Amy. You got it.
Well, I would say, there's the what and why and who. And almost all founders are pretty good at two of those. But you really need to be good at three. And I would say of those three, the most important is who. So what are you building and why are you building it? Like what is your personal connection to what you're building and who is it for? And talk to your users. Like that is, I would say, the number one mistake that I see startups make is that they're like, oh my God, this is the most incredible product ever. And it's got all these features and it does all this stuff and nobody cares. Nobody cares. Talk to the people that you want to sell to. Talk to the people whose lives your product will impact. And don't build a product that doesn't impact lives positively, right? The money will come. If you improve people's lives, the money will come. So don't do it for the money. You're going to have to do some math to get some investment, but build something great.
Yeah.
Sorry, Mike. Sorry. After.
I love listening to you talk, Jay. Go ahead.
Mike has developed a fantastic methodology. It's called Fast Design. It gives you a tool where you can immediately check your idea. And one of the most important things that Mike has shown me is not creating a persona of your client, because this is nonsense. This idealization of a client does not exist. It's more efficient to go outside, grab a coffee, ask 5 people. What Mike said is, how would a persona of your product look like? Describe the persona of your product. So if you want to know in what direction you should head, check out Mike's Fast Design methodology. Now it's your turn, Mike.
Thank you, Jay. By the way, that is a really great thing for startups to embrace, which is just, Amy just talked about it. Go talk to people right away. Don't develop something and get it perfect or think it's perfect and then go show it to someone. It's not going to work. You have to get super early feedback. But the thing I would say, my best advice for startup founders, people trying to do something in this area, is the hardest thing in the world to do is to try to change someone's behavior. You cannot change someone's behavior easily. You cannot. People always try and fail. So the thing to do is go to where they are. look at, observe, right? See what people do in their real lives. Like they're walking down the street, like I'm talking to Jay, I'm like outside in Manhattan, and like I'm on the phone with Amy or Jay. Like I'm not looking at my phone because I'm walking, right? I'm using my earbuds. You have to understand what people really do in the real world, in real situations, before you could possibly make something that they would ever want to integrate into their life. So don't invent some scenario that's the perfect scenario. Don't invent the technology and think people are just going to start using it. They will not. They will do something that is natural and just sort of fits into the flow of what they love doing already or have to do already. So that's my best advice: is don't try to change their behavior. Every once in a while, something comes along that people will change their behavior for, but it's sort of that Steve Jobs. It has to be 10 times better than anything that's ever come before, or they won't even consider changing behavior. So, listen to your customers and figure out what they could do that's already part of their life and their work.
May I just Hey guys, Mike, Jay, Amy, this is Kirill Sharshikov. Thank you for an amazing roundtable. Amy, it was awesome 2 years ago to be presenting at ITSEC, the neural based solutions. So ex-Tesla suit is always Tesla suit. I had a question. What would be your advice in terms of what skills or traits or domains one should consider in becoming successful in the metaverse, taking into account all of the possibilities that neural tech provides us?
Interesting. Well, there's a problem right now where, in general, the metaverse and what I call the neuroverse are not connected, right? And so find a way to connect them and experiment and see if anybody cares. Is it really doing something for the good of people or not?
I guess right now it will be some kind of Wild West. Everyone will try to claim his own part of the meta thing. Concerning skills, this is really hard because it depends on your startup. It depends on your product, on your vision. Are you just filling a gap, or do you have a vision? So here it's really important to see who you are. One advice that I can give you immediately: when startups reach out to me and want some kind of advice, mentoring, whatever, my first question is, how many female founders do you have? Okay? Think about it.
Well, I of course am going to agree with that assessment, but yeah, I think Wired magazine, this is a little tiny detour, but Wired magazine, Kevin Kelly wrote an article about the metaverse a couple of years ago, and he called it Mirror World, and it was really a fantastic article. However, I fundamentally don't believe that we should just build a mirror world. I think that in this realm, we can bring in simulation. We can bring in AI to actually simulate better ways of doing things. There's a new value system out there that we haven't quite touched on yet. There are these, we've already talked about some of these great ideas for the interface to take our data back. And so, we start to think about blending the technologies. We don't really even have the individual ones right yet. But I would start with the avatar. How is the avatar going to be our representative in the digital space? It will hold our public and private data, right? So you'll have your kind of public persona will be attached to your avatar in the digital realm, but then private data. And that includes all the neurotech data that we're pulling out of these environments. How will we use that? How will it be valuable to us? And then how do we, like we did in that experiment, route it actually back to us in a way that we can leverage it? And we can even, look, we should not be afraid to monetize our data, or at least receive value for sharing our data. So if you're thinking about that in terms of the metaverse and the economy of the metaverse, that will have incredible value. I don't have the answer, but you go do it. You let me know how it goes. I trust you.
Yeah, what you said, Amy, about the avatar. So BCI Neurotech has an opportunity to add something to avatars that nothing else can do, right? So you can inject feeling and thought and emotion and connection and all these things that are intangible that a sensor, a camera, or a microphone can't read in the same way. And so you can inject life into avatars in a way that can't be done any other way. I have a question. Why does Jay always look so good on camera? That's what I want to know.
I know, like I'm trying to like move around to get the light, and and Jay is just perfect. Exactly.
See you soon. See you all soon.
Thanks. See ya. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.